My name is Steve. I'm one of the pastors here at Grassroots Church, and I come to bring the word to you today. We're in a series of messages based on the Gospel of John. We're going to be in John 13, verses 31 to 38 today. We're going to go all the way to the end of chapter 14. And what I'm not going to read it quite yet, but I want to tell you a little bit about the Gospel of John. It was written by John. He probably had the other Gospels being circulated at that time, so he was looking at those Gospels and saying, hey, there's something that I could fill in a crack here, I could fill in a hole here where they kind of didn't get all the facts or they didn't get all the details. So what's really nice is that John is writing as an eyewitness. He's remembering these things that happened to him with him and Jesus, and he's writing them down for us so that we can actually see what happened, some of the details that aren't recorded in the other Gospels. One of the details that we're coming up to now is that the disciples and Jesus were at the Last Supper. We've been in the Last Supper for a few weeks now, and we're going to be in the Last Supper for another 3 or 4 chapters, but I wanted to give you guys an idea of what I want to picture it in our minds. I want to get a picture of the Last Supper in our minds. So why don't you show the first slide that I have. This is a picture of what the Last Supper actually looked like. No, I don't think so. Actually, that's Leonardo da Vinci, not Leonardo DiCaprio. Leonardo da Vinci, he painted this picture, and I don't know where his Bible was, because if he read the Bible, he would know that they were reclining at tables. So it wasn't a table that you could stand up or sit down on a chair. They were reclining. This is the idea. It was either a circular or semicircular table, and everybody would would lie down. Think about like beanbag chairs or pillows, large pillows, and they would lay down. They lean on their left elbow and reach over and grab the food with their right hand, right? So I just wanted to show this, but did you know so that was the tradition at that time, was that they were lying down, but let's show the video. There's a video that I found on the internet that shows us that that's all about to change. Don't worry, there's no sound. This will never catch on. Anybody recognize that scene? What movie that's from? Passion of the Christ, exactly. Jesus, this is conclusive evidence that Jesus is the one who invented the tall table. You see that? So, maybe at the Last Supper they were lying down, but he's like, no, man, I can make it better, right? So he was a carpenter and he made the tall table. He was an inventor along with everything else. So I like to see that. I like to be able to picture this in our minds, and that's what I want us to do. Picture what's going on in this particular passage, starting in verse 31 of chapter 13 of John. If you remember from last week, we had Judas was exposed, so to speak, by Jesus. He handed him the morsel. Satan entered into Judas, and Jesus said to him, "What you're going to do quickly." And it was night. So I see Judas walking out of that room, and maybe Jesus stood up from the table, and he went over to the door to let Judas out. And he's watching Judas go down the street, and it says, when he had gone out, Jesus said, I imagine him looking out the window, watching Judas go down the street. Now is the Son of Man glorified, and God is glorified in him. If God is glorified in him, God will also glorify him in himself, and glorify him at once. I imagine that Jesus was thinking, okay, now the process is put in place. This is the first in a sequence of events that are going to lead to the glorification of Jesus and of God. And how is that going to happen? What will be glorifying to Jesus and to God? Well, we know, if you've read ahead and you know the story, Jesus is going to go and be arrested. He's going to be beaten up and put on a Roman cross to die. And this will glorify him, and it will glorify God. Why? Because that's the way that our sins are forgiven. That's the way that our sins are nailed to the tree and taken away so that we can have the righteousness of Christ. Now I know if that might be a foreign concept to some. But that's the gospel. That's what this whole book is talking about. It's talking about how Jesus came to live a sinless life, the perfect life that we can't live, should have lived, but can't do it. He died a substitutionary death, the death that I should have died. We should have died there because of our rebellion against God. And then he rose again in glory. So this is what he talks about. If God is glorified in him, God will also glorify him in himself and glorify him at once. But what I want you to see from this one verse is it's all imminent. Jesus knows it's happening now. Now is the Son of Man glorified. And at the end, glorify him at once. Some translations read immediately. This is something that's happening now, and Jesus is aware of it. And he knows he just set in motion his own arrest and death. So now he turns from the window and he goes back to the table to his disciples, and this is starting. I know that this is what the result is going to be, so I need to tell my followers something. I need to give these disciples something to hang on to. And he turns to them, he says, little children, yet a little while I'm with you. You will seek me, and just as I said to the Jews, so now I also say to you, where I am going, you cannot come. He has to get this ragtag group of 11 men to some kind of cohesion, some kind of adhesive to pull them together. I don't know if you know, but if you read the accounts in the other Gospels, you'll see that these men, they weren't necessarily all angels, okay? In fact, there's only one hero in the Bible, and that's Jesus Christ. We know that. The fact is that many of these men couldn't work in our children's ministry because they wouldn't pass the background check, okay? Look, you go all the way back to the Old Testament. Noah got drunk. David was an adulterer. Moses was a murderer. I mean, these people were used by God, but they were not your, Mr. Clean at all. And these men, these 11 men, had been called out of their work lives, the things that they were doing, their families, and they were following after Jesus, but they were by no means innocent little children. These guys, if you read the other Gospels, you'll see they dispute about who's going to be the greatest in the kingdom of God. I'm going to be at Jesus' right hand. My brother will be at his left hand. They're constantly disputing about this. And even at this time, in the Last Supper, there's It's recorded in Luke how they were disputing about who would be the greatest in the kingdom. That's not my quiet time with Jesus. I'm not trying to figure out if I'm going to be the greatest in the kingdom. I don't think that that's what he wants us to be thinking about. So he says, where I'm going, you cannot come. He says that because he knows their hearts. He knows what they're made of. He knows how they are reacting. And so he says this. This is the most important thing that I want you guys to know. Verse 34, a new commandment I give to you, that you love one another just as I have loved you. You also are to love one another. It's got to be the most important thing because it's the first thing he tells this group of men who are disputing among each other and they can't go with him. They know that he's the only one who can do it. But he says this, hey, this is how you're supposed to act. You should love one another. And I think he's telling us too, because the next verse says, by this all people will know that you are my disciples if you have love for one another. What are we? Are we disciples? Then we should have love for one another. How does that work? Do we have a definition of love in the Bible? Anywhere? Anybody know? Is there a definition of love? Do we know?
1 Corinthians 13.
1 Corinthians 13. Didn't we read that this morning? Oh, man. I can't believe you came up with that. Yeah, 1 Corinthians 13 tells us what love is and what it is not. And Pastor Matt read it for us because I wanted our minds to be set on just that. Let me get it open. The things that should mark our discipleship, should mark us as people living together in community, is patience and kindness. It shouldn't be envy or boasting. It shouldn't be arrogant or rude. We are not arrogant or rude with one another. It should look like that it's not irritable or resentful, doesn't rejoice in wrongdoing. We should be rejoicing in the truth where we find it. We bear each other's burdens. Love bears all things. Love hopes all things. And love endures all things. That's what it should look like to be in the community, to be a part of this community of believers. And so that's what he's telling the disciples. He says, look, this is a new commandment. Now, wait a minute. It's really not all that new, is it? I can find places in the Old Testament where it says that you should love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. I can find places in the Old Testament that say you should love your neighbor as yourself. What kind of a new commandment is this? I think you notice it when it says, just as I have loved you, you are to love one another. Jesus is the example that we have of what love means. You know, Pastor Matt got all those nice verses about washing the feet. Jesus got down, washed the feet. Why do you think he did that? He wanted to be an example of how the master, the teacher, was acting like a servant. So how we act toward each other should not be who's going to be the greatest in the kingdom, but who can serve the others more. How can we serve each other? That's our commitment that we make. And when we do that, people know that we're disciples of Jesus because we have love for one another. Now there's one other, we're going to go back into our little scene now of the Last Supper, and Jesus is talking to these people. He's talking to his disciples. He's just giving them a big concept. You need to love one another just as I have loved you. That's how you should love one another. And Peter raises his hand and says, whoa, wait a minute. Simon Peter says, Lord, where are you going? He's like, Oh, I want to go back to what you said. Didn't you say, where I am going, you cannot come? Where are you going? Now, Peter gets a bad rap in a lot of ways, and I'm not here to bag on him, but he is very impulsive, let's put it. He is impulsive, and he wants to know, wait a minute, I heard you say something, and I want to stop you. So he interrupts Jesus. Where are you going? And Jesus answers the same thing that he said earlier. He said a couple verses ago, he says, where I'm going, you cannot follow me now. He adds, you can't follow me now, but you will follow afterward. Okay. So Peter gets his answer. You know, Peter, this isn't the first time that he's interrupted Jesus. Peter is good at this. Peter actually, I like Peter because he asks questions. Let me clarify this. Let me get this straight. If you go back to the Gospel of Matthew, you'll see a real good example of this. Peter, in Matthew 16, Jesus is asking all the disciples, who do people say that I am? And they're answering all the different names, Elijah and different people. And Jesus says, well, who do you say that I am? Who do you say that I am? And Peter's the first one, raises his hand and says, you are the Messiah, the Son of the living God. Right? Yeah. And Jesus says, wow, Peter, blessed are you, because flesh and blood has not revealed this to you, but the living God has revealed it to you. My Father who is in heaven. And he goes on to tell him some more stuff. And then it says, from that time, after Peter revealed this great truth, from that time, Jesus began to show his disciples that he must go to Jerusalem and suffer many things from the elders and chief priests and scribes, and be killed, and on the third day rise from the dead. And Peter took him aside. Wait a minute, Jesus, I don't think you know what you're talking about here. He took him aside and began to rebuke him. That's not just like, oh, can I ask a question? No, that's like, Jesus, I think you're wrong about this. I don't think you really want to go through with that plan. I don't like the plan. He says, far be it from you, Lord. This shall never happen. What do you think Jesus thought about that? That's the plan. And Jesus says, get behind me, Satan. He calls Peter Satan. That's not what you want to hear Jesus calling you in your quiet time, okay? Just not a good thing if he's calling you, get behind me, Satan, okay? This is the point. Peter doesn't always see the end like Jesus does. And Peter, he speaks up, he speaks his mind, and he's doing the same thing here. Peter's saying the same, going through the same motions. Why can I not follow you now? He goes, I'll lay down my life for you. I see an eye roll, and Jesus says, will you lay down your life for me? Straight up, I say to you, the rooster will not crow until you have denied even knowing me 3 times. Not once, not just a mistake, not just, oh, I didn't know what they were asking. 3 times, you'll deny me, and then the rooster's going to crow. Oftentimes, we want to kind of keep that little part of our life, that Christian part, that part that's, following after Jesus. We want to keep that a little quiet. When he does this, we'll get into it then. It's a very dramatic scene when Peter does this. But right here, what can we learn? What can we learn from just this little scene in the Last Supper? I think there are three things. The first one is that when Jesus is troubled, when he, because before he sent Judas away, it said he was troubled because he had to expose this betrayer. When Jesus is troubled, we see it over and over, he remembers the mission. What is the mission? What is the purpose that I'm here? Earlier in chapter 13, he said the same thing. He remembers, he recalls what his purpose is, and that's what we need to do. If we're troubled by something, we need to remember, what is the mission? What kind of thing are we really supposed to do? What are we here for? And Jesus remembers that. And he, in this case, he recalls, this is for God's glory. This is how God is going to be glorified. Second, we can't go where Jesus is going. In fact, he's the only one in human history that could do what he did. He was born just like all of us, but with a God nature as well as a human nature. He was fully God and fully human. I know that's impossible to understand because we're only fully human. And it's never happened before, and it won't happen again. But Jesus came just for that. And he says that we can't follow him. Nobody can follow him to the cross. Hey, Peter, if you lay down your life, you're just laying down your life. That doesn't help anyone. You can't die for your own sins, and you can't die for the sins of anybody else. You'd just be laying down your life. But Jesus could come, and because he was the perfect sacrifice, he could lay down his life. And so he says, you can't come. All the while, Jesus is saying, follow me, follow me, follow me. I'm the example. You can follow me. This one time he says, you can't follow. I'm the only one who can do it. I have to do this alone. Can't save yourself. Third thing, the third thing is this thing about loving one another. I think we need to learn how to do that experientially. I think it happens in life. And that's where we need to stop the disputing, stop any kind of conflict that might be here, and instead love one another out of gratitude for what God has done for us in Jesus Christ. And I don't know all of the experiences that are in this room, but I do know that there are times when one says, I really want to be the greatest in the kingdom, or I think I've got a special, some kind of special thing from God that nobody else has, and so I kind of want to hold that over other people. That can happen. What we need to do is remember the words of Paul in 1 Corinthians 13 when he tells us what love really means. And with that love, then we will be known as disciples of Jesus. Do you want to be known as a disciple of Jesus? I do. I want people to see the love and see the discipleship that goes on in Grassroots Church. And the more we can do that, the more we'll be a light to Puna and bring, as Jeff was talking about, we'll bring that light into this area so that we can enjoy being in the light as opposed to staying in darkness. So let's pray, and we'll respond in praise and worship and song. Father, this is the time that we can set aside to truly meditate on what we've heard, to truly think through how it is we're going to serve you through loving each other, through glorifying you with our lives, and through loving and caring for this community. Thank you for making us a light and salt in this world. Show us how we can deepen the commitment of all here. Show us how we can more effectively serve the people who come. Father, we are going to be helping people out with food today. Help us to stay humble and welcome all who come. Show them the love that Jesus showed. Show them the example that Jesus gave us for loving each other, serving each other. We pray in Jesus' name. Amen.